I'm Michael Coffey. I'm the pastor of First English Lutheran Church in Austin, Texas, and this is a tiny desk sermon. This is a first look at the readings for this coming Sunday and some impromptu reflections on the readings. This coming Sunday is August 26th, and it's the set of readings from lectionary 21. I'm going to focus on the first reading, which is from Joshua. If you've been following the readings the last few weeks, it's been a series of gospel readings on Jesus and the bread of life from Gospel of John. And what better time to turn to the Old Testament reading for a change of voice and theme. So from Joshua 24, we hear, "Then Joshua gathered all the tribes of Israel to Shechem and summoned the elders, the heads, the judges, and the officers of Israel, and they presented themselves before God. And Joshua said to all the people," and then, by the way, there's a big jump in the text to verse 14, and I'll talk about that jump in a second. "Now, therefore, revere the Lord and serve him in sincerity and in faithfulness. Put away the gods that your ancestors served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. Now, if you are unwilling to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your ancestors served in the region beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you are living. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord." Then the people answered, "Far be it from us that we should forsake the Lord to serve other gods. For it is the Lord our God who brought us and our ancestors up from the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery, and who did those great signs in our sight. He protected us along all the way that we went, and among all the peoples through whom we passed. And the Lord drove out before us all the peoples, the Amorites who lived in the land. Therefore, we also will serve the Lord, for he is our God." Well, it's a really challenging and profound text that comes at an important juncture in the life of the people of Israel as they are still entering the land and establishing themselves, and Joshua calls them to make a choice. Now, the part that we skipped over in the lectionary reading is about 12 verses that summarize all the great things God has done for the people to get them to this point. And then that's when Joshua says, "So therefore, choose which God you're going to serve." Now, in that call to a choice, notice the two things that the people are called to reject. The first thing, which might be the most surprising, is to reject the gods that your ancestors worshipped. That's really pretty challenging if you stop and think about it. Reject what your grandparents were doing. That's not something we take too easily or lightly. We revere ancestors, and sometimes quite rightly. But if we revere our ancestors uncritically, then we might be perpetuating the false gods that our ancestors worshipped. So one is the critical rejection of ancestors, of the gods that they worshipped. And the second thing is to reject the gods that are worshipped in the culture you now find yourself in, which is not the culture of Israel. The common practices, the assumptions, the easy social ways of living that don't promote what our God of Israel is about. Those are challenging categories for us to think about. How often do we either uncritically pass along what our ancestors did, or uncritically accept what the culture does? Now, in American culture, we're stuck in a mode of wanting to value our heritage, but not always doing critically examining what should be brought forward and what should be rejected. What should we say no to from the past, and what should we affirm and carry forward? There's a lot of struggle right now between the the way that white culture has perpetuated a lot of ancestor worship that includes things that should not be passed on. And there's a lot of need to listen to what is still happening right now that we thoughtlessly propagate in our day and time. And then, so we're called to make a lot of no statements, a lot of renunciations of the past and the present. And then we're called to say yes to the God of justice, neighborliness, mercy, generosity, care for the neighbor, acceptance of the alien among us, the God of the alternative way of living, the alternative to the past and the present. So it's not pitting past against present in some way. It's about an alternative. And it's the alternative of the God of liberation. That section that we skip over in the reading is the story of the God who liberated our ancestors and us. And we are called to worship that God today, the God of love and liberation. So what do we need to say no to today? What do we need to say yes to about this God that we claim and love and yet often only partially give allegiance to? And how do we live that out faithfully in our times? That's the challenge for people of faith today. So the challenge I want to leave you with is to think, what do I need to say no to from the past and the present? What do I need to say yes to about the God of alternative living, the God of love and liberation, the God of Israel, the God of Jesus. Jesus who is the bread of life, who nourishes us with grace to live an alternative life. Peace to all.